All right, let's move on. Yeah, this is a good one. If Erik could talk to himself 2 years before he took his life, what advice would he give himself?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a powerful question.
Very.
Okay. He goes, well, I would tell myself that everything is circumstantial, nothing's permanent, because I had myself convinced that everything was permanent. He says, I had a sense of permanency with, if I lost a friend, it was permanent. I wasn't going to make any new friendships or regain that one. Everything is circumstantial, and I let that affect me so deeply. The circumstances around me just defined me to such a depth that I couldn't shake. He says, so in looking back, if I could tell myself something, it would be not to let circumstances define me, not to let other people's actions too, because he says I was treated like crap sometimes, and that made me reflect on myself based on those interactions. When people treated me like crap or stood me up, I began to define myself that way, that's who I was. And those circumstances are what changed me and my ability to believe who I was. So I would tell myself that outside circumstances don't define you. Other people and their opinions don't define you and their actions. The only definition of you is what you connect to on the inside and what you feel. What feels most natural, the most natural state of being, is self-acceptance. He says, I just couldn't do that. I had to have others' acceptance to accept myself. He says, so everything is circumstantial, and self-acceptance without the need of others is most important. Something I missed. He went like this. He goes, that's something I missed. He's just kind of laughing.
Yeah. No, but it's true though, because when you are, from my experience, when I've been depressed, I think it's permanent. Like, I think this is the way I always am. And then it just disappears. And it's like, no, it's not always like this. But in the moment, you think this is it. And you have to remind yourself that, no, it's just the moment, or it's just that day, or it's just a period
just
of
that
time.
Circumstance. Yeah. Nothing's permanent, he says.
Right. Okay, so yeah, this is interesting. I haven't come across this before. Black holes, are they the archaic, I don't know how you pronounce Akashic records?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. He's okay. He's going like this. That's it. That's when he tells me, when people ask stuff like what was before God, he'll go like this. Like, although I know that, I'm not allowed to share that with you. So he's doing that a little bit. Like, there's a little that he'll share, but apparently there's stuff that humans aren't supposed to know.
Wow.
Black holes are real. Black holes exist, he says. And what it is it's new pathways to new information. Basically untouched, organic, unseen information. So these black holes represent an avenue to new information. Now, he makes me feel like this is so cool. Like, let's say we're looking at like 3 different black holes, and each one represents something different for mankind, like a major understanding. And they will be released or revealed, that information, to mankind. It's orchestrated, it's organized, he says. So let's say, one of these black holes represents the example I just gave. Who was here before God, or how did God get here if God created everything, Let's say one of the black holes represents that answer. that will be revealed when mankind is capable of grasping it, understanding it, and also when it's needed for mankind. So these black holes represent like pathways to new information that nobody has touched. He goes, I don't care how psychic you are, you haven't been there. He says they will be opened up and revealed, and many of them have. He says many of them have been opened up and traveled through by people who can astral travel or astral project.
Or ETs, says, like extraterrestrials, I guess, know this.
He says the knowledge of it, yes, but actually no, like merging with the information there, no. He says this is a part of the Akashic records, and it can only be released in certain volumes. He goes, you know how you have level 1, level 2, level 3. There's a reason why it's organized, and many of them have been accessed, and it's going to be released to mankind as mankind needs to grow and evolve with them spiritually.
So maybe in a few thousand years.
He's laughing, and I said, "Well, what will be happening in a few thousand years?" And he went like that.
Or maybe in 100 years, who knows? Or maybe in 5 years. Okay, so let's see. Eating animals, is it okay? And did they agree upon it before their incarnation?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, eating meat is okay. Eating animals is okay. He says, there's a whole, he goes, if you want to get real technical, you should always, he's kind of rolling his eyes because he's like, this is hopefully common knowledge at this point. He goes, but you'd be surprised, Kim. If you are eating meat, always give gratitude but he says, understand that meat has no hierarchy, or animals have no hierarchy over plants. So if you're eating spinach, he goes, you should be asking the same thing. You know, spinach has awareness when it's in the ground and it's growing. It's going to nurture you too. He says, so plants and animals, they have no hierarchy over each other. Just people have a weird thought process about it because animals have a different level of awareness and they can follow commands and that sort of thing. But because that's why they get all tripped up with eating animals. So no matter what you're eating, always understand that awareness happened there. So when you're looking at your meat on your plate or your spinach on your plate, that, you know, there's awareness there. So give thanks for that. Give gratitude. He says, there's nothing wrong with eating meat. Just give gratitude towards that. And yes, he goes, sometimes animals can die or be butchered in under horrific circumstances. Most of the time they've agreed to it. Sometimes they haven't. Sometimes it's like out of contract. But either way, it doesn't matter. If you give gratitude for what you're ingesting, you're changing the vibration of it before you ingest it.
Oh,
so
that's interesting. I haven't thought of that.
He says, as you have your food on your plate, no matter what it is, he said,
give thanks.
It had to come from somewhere, no matter what it is. Put the energy on it in which you want it to do to your body. Oh, he's going to open up a can of worms real quick. He goes, you women, think about this, and some men. He says, you have a plate of food in front of you and you think, oh, this is wonderful, but it might make me fat. He goes, you just put that vibration on it. You just put that energy on it. So that's what it's going to do to your body. He says, your cells believe you. Cells in themselves react. It's scientifically proven. So if you tell any type of cell that, anything, it's going to believe that. It's going to absorb that vibration. So do that with your food. Be conscious in what you eat and how you eat it and change the vibration of it.
I love that. I Yeah, that I mean, I'm always giving thanks when I am eating for like inside myself, because sometimes people around me don't do it and I'm like, oh, I'm so
Right.
grateful. But I didn't know that it changed the vibration. Like I didn't know the physics of it or the scientific, you know,
Yeah.
behind it.
Ooh,
So
my
that's
ear.
really cool. That is connected to my next question. That's about law of attraction, law of polarity, and law of the universe. Yeah, the law of attraction, is it for real?
He's just smiling. He's going like, oh. He says this one is also something that needs clarification.
Okay.
When you think of, he says, when you think of the law of attraction, a lot of people think karma and think what you put out, you're going to get back. Because that's true to an extent. But the difference is, um, this is okay. He's going to get real deep on this one. um, okay, this is very similar to what Elisa is going to share on the blog today, if she hasn't already, about manifestation. Okay, it all kind of comes into one. When we talk about the power of the subconscious mind, um, the power in that is unrealized and misunderstood, Erik says. When you think, let's say you want to use the law of attraction to increase your finances, he says, so people say, I'm going to be prosperous and I'm going to be successful and I'm going to da 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 da. He says, well, guess what? You're manifesting the opposite, because you say, I'm going to.
Right.
You're acknowledging that it does not exist, the lack of existence. So what you acknowledge becomes your reality. So if you acknowledge, like, oh, I'm going to land that contract and I'm going to be successful, you can put that shit out there all day long, he says. But if you don't understand how the subconscious mind works, you're never going to manifest that as your reality. So it's sort of like the concept that people have as the law of attraction, but rather, if you understand your subconscious mind and how it works, you can manifest whatever reality you want. So same goes with, if you do garbage to people, is that going to come back to you? Or am I experiencing some karmic return from another life? No, it's your subconscious mind. It's your whole thought process that's creating this reality for you.
But isn't there a karma? Is there no such thing as karma?
He says no. He says it's
Oh,
all
really?
about he goes, because, for example, to finish that thought, if you say, I'm going to achieve that financial success, you're acknowledging that you don't have it. So in that acknowledgement, you're stuck in that perpetual state. That's why it feels karmic. Like, man, am I supposed to be in poverty all this life because I can't seem to get away from it? Is this karma? He says it's your thought process that's creating your reality. And people misunderstand that for karma. He says karma isn't really real like you think, like it's a boomerang effect.
But what about balance? I mean, the universe, what I believe is that it's all about balance. So doesn't it need to balance itself? Like if you did something to another person in one life, it needs to balance that energy or that relationship in a way to have, yeah, to get like equilibrium.
He says to a degree, because if you have an up, you have to have the same amount of down to
Right.
neutralize it. He says, but that's very different from karma. From what you're thinking, he goes, people think that karma is like a boomerang effect, like something is going to come back to you. In that perpetual state is the subconscious mind. So he says, no matter what you're thinking about or what you're experiencing, if you continue to put it out there like, oh, this must be karma, it's the way you acknowledge your reality that continues to manifest the same thing. So what you're talking about, in order to create a neutral line of existence from, something, if something was so negative, then you need the same, the opposite amount of positive. He says to neutralize it. That is where you need to shift your subconsciousness, where you need to shift your thought process, not necessarily just your actions and thinking, oh, this is a karmic, dealing of some sort.
I assume that this is very complex and it's difficult to talk about so shortly, because
it is. He's like, if people could read more and understand more about how the subconscious mind works, it'll blow your mind, because it'll speak your truth when you don't know how to.
I interviewed Bruce Lipton, and he said that 95% of our actions, or everything we do, is controlled by our subconsciousness, and just 5% is our consciousness. 95% subconsciousness and 5% conscious awareness. That's a bit scary.
He says, now if you understood that, it would be, he's kind of laughing, it would be life-changing to so many, but he goes, I'm not sure they could handle that change. He wants me to mention an example. This workshop that my friend had went to is extremely fascinating. I don't know if you've ever heard of manual muscle testing before, but it's a tangible way to show what your subconscious is doing or thinking. So for example, manual muscle testing, I hold my arm straight out to the side and she pushes down on it, and it's kind of a medical thing. And then she'll rate that, she'll ask me a question, if you're trying to manifest this spiritual wellness center. And she asked me, first of all, she'll test my arm, just my normal strength. And then she'll ask me the question, do you believe you'll have a spiritual wellness center? And I say yes. And then she'll manual muscle test me again. And if it's different, or if I'm weaker, that's because I don't actually believe. And so that's the subconscious way of coming through in a tangible way to show your truth. So that was pretty powerful when she showed me that.
That's interesting. Okay, so I want to speak about, or ask about, the heart. Like, how can we, people are talking about that we have to get into the heart and we have to let go and operate more from the heart and not from the mind. So how do we do that? It sounds very easy, and then for me, I discovered that it's not that easy actually, because I don't know actually what it means. I'm like, am I in the heart now, or am I in my mind?
He says, well, when you're asking yourself that question, you're in your mind. He says, because when you're in your heart, you don't need to ask those questions. But he says, the best easiest example I can give you, the simplest answer I can give you, he says, is being able to recognize your own ego and shedding that. When you can shed that, you just automatically step into heart. He says, you have to have some ego to be able to distinguish a sense of self, but don't let it go any further than that. When you can shed that, you step into a heart-centered state of existence, and that in itself doesn't need answers, not that it doesn't have questions, but doesn't need justification. So if you're still battling and feeling like in that headspace, like, am I in my heart right now, or how am I feeling about this right now? You're probably still mainly in the headspace. If you focus your energy into the heart, you'll find less need for that question. It's a state of more acceptance. Just accepting what is, how it is. It almost feels like surrender when he talks about it. So surrender to the situation, surrender to your life. And
I think it's a process, though, to surrender, because I don't think you can try to surrender. I think it's doing, from my perspective or my experience, doing the work, and then slowly.
I would agree. And he says, when thinking about surrender to the life around you, that's hard, because people are raised and conditioned to think and know that they have control over themselves and over circumstances. He says, so the idea in itself of surrendering to circumstances is hard for people. It's hard to let go. But that is your natural state of being. That's what you're called to do here as humans. But getting back to that can be hard. Getting back to that can be a windy road, he says. But it's possible. And it's the less questions, the better. If you just surrender to what's going on around you, you don't have to analyze it. You don't need to understand it, so to speak. He goes, now come on. He goes, there's some circumstances where you do. But asking those questions, needing that fulfillment comes from a need from a control, comes from ego. He says, so it all roots back to ego.
It's kind of simple, but not easy.
Yes, I could have said that better myself.
So on the at the last note, does he have something to say about me, or a message for me? The last time he had so much to say to me, and he said something about TV stuff, that I was gonna do TV, and he had so many messages for me, and I'm wondering, like, if he still, or if he has something to say to me this time.
Okay, let me see what he says. He says, well, he's getting real candid with you. He says, your organizational skills are climbing. Like, he makes me feel like business is climbing, and with that, your organizational skills with business climbing is paired. He just keeps laughing. He says, like, the ability to, I guess, maintain incoming business is stronger. So when you talk about something related to TV, he says, yes, but don't limit yourself. He got real direct with you when he says, when I asked, I said, does she have some upcoming something about TV, a TV show?
Because he said that the last time he talked about television, and yeah.
He said that is what you will experience in this incarnation. You will experience television like yourself, whether it's a show of yourself, for yourself. He says, but don't limit yourself, because there are still many, he says, diverse opportunities going to be coming in. So don't just be fixated on TV and, oh, that's something coming through about TV, I'm going to focus on that. Because there's also a whole wealth of other opportunities coming in that you should really take advantage of. He says, this interview versus the last one, your spiritual understanding, you're more comfortable with it. He says you're really starting to settle down and find comfort in what you've learned about other realms and spirituality and everything that falls under that umbrella. He says you're really starting to get comfortable in all of it, and you're starting to learn your knack.
My knack? What is that?
It's kind of slang for like your area of expertise, like your specialization.
Okay.
Whatever you specialize in, whether it's what you talk about during interviews or that sort of thing. He says you're really getting to know yourself through this whole process. He goes, it's funny because when you interview people, you think you're getting to know them, but it's really teaching you a lot about you. He goes, that's the purpose for all of it anyway.
That's interesting. The last time he was cursing much more. Has he become more polite? Or refined in his language? Or is that because you are different from Jamie, or that you have different filters? Because of course you are different persons, and I will believe that you are two different filters, so it will be quite different.
When Erik cusses, if I'm told to filter it, if I'm doing a radio show.
Sorry, I meant cusses, not curse.
Yeah, then I will. I'll filter it if it's not allowed on the air. But he still cusses with me. There's times where if I'm told to filter it based on a show, then I will. Otherwise, I don't, because then it's much harder to keep him in a true state of himself. You know, I don't need to filter what he says unless a radio show is like, hey, no cussing on the air. So
Right.
then I'll filter it. But no, he goes back and forth. There's times where he comes across very gentlemanly, very gentle and mature.
Yeah.
There's other times where he's very playful and ornery and can embarrass the heck out of me during a show or something. So
And now he was very like polite, I felt like.
yeah, he was that way for the other show today too. Very laid back, very honest and direct with his answers. So he's always honest, but his level of candidness, I guess, can vary.
So, Erik, do you have some last words that you really want to share with my audience?
He says, first of all, thank you all for the work that you do on yourselves, not just in related to channeling Erik or being a blog member or anything like that. People listen to shows like this because they want to connect to themselves more. They want something deeper. And so he's thanking them for being brave enough to chase that fulfillment. And then also, again, in the same sense, don't be afraid to chase that. Don't be afraid to really dive in and find out who you are, because that is such freedom. He says, I hope everybody listening realizes and understands what I couldn't realize when I was in my physical life, and that is life continues to change. Everything is circumstantial. So surrender to it. He says, go through life be more accepting of what comes to you. He says you'll have a much more pleasant experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erik.
He's blowing kisses. He's saying, thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Kim. This was wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
And good luck with all the videos. I'm following you on YouTube, and you guys should, it's awesome. All these different topics, and you guys should really check out Elisa Medhus' YouTube channel. There she has many videos where they talk with Erik on very many different topics. And also check out Channeling Erik, and also your website, which is, do you have your own website?
I do. It's kimbabcock.net, and there you can find links to Erik's books and the YouTube channel, which is Channeling Erik as well. So yeah, it's kimbabcock.net, and that's where folks can schedule with me or email to try to ask their questions too for the show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
And thank you for watching, guys, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you haven't before, or you can meet me on Facebook or Instagram. Much light. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.